As a big comics dork, I'm unsurprisingly rather fond of superhero movies. But I haven't seen all of them, so I made a list, checked it twice, and still screwed it up because I forgot Elektra. That very memorable film, Elektra from 2005. Yep, my list of superhero movies I hadn't seen was incomplete, but now it's more complete-er. I was going to watch Ghost Rider because I'm watching them in chronological order, all the superhero movies I've missed over the decades. Ghost Rider was next, but I forgot Elektra, so we're going back for Elektra. We're getting you, Elektra. Okay. Jennifer Garner electrifies. Get it? Because Elektra. As an assassin whose change of heart leads her into a war against evil in this follow-up to Daredevil. Now, I thought this would be a fun series to do. You know, go back and catch all the superhero movies I've missed. So far, I missed them all for good reasons. Because everything I've watched in this series so far has been bad. But I'm sure Elektra will break that trend. Because it's the follow-up to Daredevil. You remember the Daredevil movie with Ben Affleck? It was not bad. So I'm sure that Elektra will also be not bad. And at this point in this series, that's really all I can hope for. On the bright side, it's only 100 minutes, so that either way, that's a plus. Okay. All right. Whew. All right. I'm actually really nervous because I like liking movies. I don't like not liking movies. I want Elektra to be good. I hope it's a hidden gem. Whew. Let's find out. All right. Let's start with the positives, shall we? Yes, we shall. You know that overused trope in movies with ninjas and assassins and ninja assassins, or slashers like Michael Myers, where they're standing there staring at you, and then a car goes in front of them and they're gone? You see that in movies all the time. Elektra does something like that a couple of times, but does it in a different way. Sometimes it calls attention to the fact that it's doing that, and sometimes it's just kind of an incidental background thing that you're like, where'd that person go? I think there were some nice choices there. So good job on taking an old trope and presenting it in a somewhat fresh way. I like that. Very nice. There's a scene in the middle of the movie where Elektra and the guy smooch. And it's pretty clear that Elektra hasn't had a date in years. And she's like totally into the smooch. She's like leaning into this sucker hard. So they come up for air, and he goes, sorry. And she looks at him and says, yeah, I really hated that. That was funny. I didn't quite guffaw, but I did laugh out loud. That one was good. I like that. Well done, movie. There's a villain whose superpower is having a lot of tattoos that come to life. So he has like a tattoo of an eagle or falcon or something that comes to life and flies around and can scout for him. Or he has a wolf, a tattoo wolf that comes out and can stalk prey or, track them down by scent or something. And he has lots of snakes that can come and go slither and grab people. That's a really cool idea for a villain superpower. That's really neat. Is that a character from the books? I don't know. I've never read any of the Elektra books. I've never read any of the Daredevil books. Now, I've read comics that Daredevil has shown up in, sure, but yeah, never read any of the Daredevil or Elektra books. So, original character, one from the comics. It's a neat character. Let's see. Cary Hiroyuki Tagawa. That's it. Just Cary Hiroyuki Tagawa. He's in this movie, and that makes the movie even better. If you don't know who that is, that's the guy who played Shang Tsung in the Mortal Kombat movie, the one from '94. Also, as I mentioned going in, the movie's only 100 minutes, so that's great too. That's about it for the good. Yeah, that's about it. So how was the movie? Well, let me put it this way. Though the movie is 100 minutes, it took me over 2.5 hours to get through it. This movie is punishingly boring. I had to take, I think, 3 separate breaks. I almost paused it about 8 minutes from the end of the movie and thought very seriously about taking a nap. So, I can't say I was into this one. Most of the movies I've watched in this series so far start out okay. Like Amazing Spider-Man or the Fantastic Four, right? The first half, 30, 40 minutes of these movies, I was like, this isn't too bad. It's all right. I mean, this movie, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And then it wasn't. Elektra starts out boring and stays that way throughout the entire runtime. Points for consistency, but that's not the consistent level you want to remain at. Terrence Stamp plays Stick in this. So that's a thing. Cary Hiroyuki Tagawa plays the big bad, the head of the council. He's the guy who sits at the head of the table in the shadowy boardroom and orders people to do stuff, right? And the guy has presence. He has gravitas. There's a guy you look at and you're like, I'm not messing with him, and I know that guy's in charge. I don't need a name tag or a little placard on the table that says manager. I know he's in charge. He's just got the gravitas. He has that presence, right? Unfortunately, he does nothing in this movie other than sit in that chair. So the premise or the setup of the movie is there is a girl who is the chosen one, and the bad guys want her. Either dead if they can't have her, or they just want her so that they could win the war. The secret war. The secret war between good and evil that is very thoughtfully waged in the shadows. Like all great wars between good and evil, it's really considerate of these great wars between good and evil. They always keep them on the down low. No one ever knows about it. Let's fight this in the wouldn't want to inconvenience anyone with our war of good and evil, right? So, the Hand, the ninja group, there's a good version and a bad version, and our treasure, our little girl who's, I guess she's just good at fighting. She just seems to be a martial arts prodigy. Is she really that important? I don't know. But she's a good guy, so they're like, well, if we can't have her, then we're going to send an assassin after her. So Elektra protects her and her dad, the person she smooches, and totally hated that. Okay, there's your setup. So Elektra's an assassin, and she is waiting for an next assignment. She gets to know this little girl and her dad. She's like 14 or something. I think the movie says she's 13, but the actor looks a little older. But whatever. Young teenage girl and her father, and she has Christmas dinner with them. Gets her next assignment. Oh shoot! I'm supposed to kill these two. Well, poopies. And decides not to, and decides to protect them from the hand. Okay, cool. Basic setup for these types of movies. That's fine. So Cary Hiroyuki Tagawa sends the B team ninjas, and they fail. So he sends his son, who takes the A team ninjas, which include the tattoo guy and some other superpowered peoples. And it's a superhero movie, so they ultimately fail too. So she beats the B team, and then she beats the A team, and then I guess Cary Hiroyuki Tagawa just says, well, there's no S team, so I guess we lose. Oh well, I'm gonna Netflix and chill. That is that's a waste of Cary Hiroyuki Tagawa, if you ask me. I guess the little treasure girl wasn't that important after all. It's like, I mean, she's good. She has potential, but I guess it's not worth, losing 40 people, 40 employees. 4 or 5 of which were awesome ninjas. With supernatural powers. So almost nothing in this movie works. I don't like the way it's shot. There's a lot of slow-mo. In fact, this movie could have been 90 minutes if they would cut with the overdone slow motion. There's a lot of really fancy editing with slow-mo and double exposures and weird filters, and I didn't like it. None of the character motivations make any sense. None of the characters are particularly likable, which is not to say they're unlikable, which is not to say I don't like Elektra or Abby or the guy who's the little girl or the dad. They're fine, but they're not really doing anything to endear themselves to me. Like, I'm not rooting for them. I'm not concerned for them, so there's no tension. The action is uniformly terrible. It's not very well performed. It's not very well shot. And it's not very well conceived either. In fact, a lot of it's really dumb. So, our A-team ninjas are introduced slow motion walking into a building, into the boardroom where Cary Hiroyuki Tagawa is. And they're led by the Carrie's kid, Nepotism, who's just a dude with swords, but he's really good with them, so, okay, that's his superpower. And then there's the dude who's just humongous. That's a superpower, he's just a big dude. Followed by a dude who's like got his hand out like this. Like, I thought he might have been a pyromancer and they just forgot to add the flame in his hand. Because he walks in like this, and I'm like, there's nothing in his hand. What is he doing? And then it cuts closer and he's like balancing a coin on the end of his fingers. I'm like, oh, he's got a coin. Maybe you would have wanted to establish that first so that we don't look at this guy going and wondering what the hell he's doing. And you might wonder, okay, he can balance a coin on his fingertips. What's his actual superpower? I don't know. Because in the fight scene in the woods, which are near a farmhouse for some reason, whatever, I don't care about that. That's not why the movie's bad. He just grabs Abby, the little treasure girl, and holds her at knife point, and that's it. What does that have to do with him balancing a coin on his finger? Nothing. He doesn't do anything. Uh, uh, uh. The big guy's cool because he's big, and he gets shot point blank with a shotgun, and it's just like, dusting off the shotgun pellets. That's cool. That's spooky. That's like, oh, poop. He has like a club, and Elektra throws 2 shuriken at the trunk of a tree to use as footsteps to get up into the tree so she can hide, ignoring the gigantic branch about 4 feet off the ground, which is clearly there in almost every shot. Didn't really need to throw the shuriken at the tree. I mean, it's a neat idea. I'm going to throw shuriken at a tree and use them as stepping stones to get up into the high branches. Well, neat. Very ninja-y. But there's a big old, real big thick branch about 4 feet up the trunk. You could have just used that. And you know what? She does. A little bit later, after she falls out of the tree and then tries to get back up it. So the big bruiser dude, he chucks his mace or club at the tree, and this is a tree that's like 6 feet thick, and it passes through the trunk, and the tree teeters over, and Elektra's up in there going, "Oh no, I'm falling! Oh, the tree that I'm in is falling!" While the tree is falling, big bruiser dude goes after the treasure girl and her dad, and gets hit by the fallen tree. Like, no one tricks him into the path. No one kicks him into the path of the falling tree. He knocks over the tree himself on purpose. And then just walks away from it as it's falling towards him and just forgets about it. And gets crushed by it. Elektra also stabs him with one of her sai. Is the plural of sai, or is it sais? I'm not sure. I think it's just sai. Singular and plural, so far as I know. Could be wrong. I'm sure you'll let me know in the comments. She stabs him, and the sai just shatters. So it's really weird when you see nigh invincible characters defeated by something heavy falling on them. I'll avoid spoilers, but there was a fairly recent Marvel movie where a character who we know to be extraordinarily physically powerful is defeated, probably killed, although that's not explicitly shown, by something heavy falling on them. And you're like, that might inconvenience, that might slow him down for a minute, but same thing here. You're like, what? Of course, every ninja that dies in this movie erupts in a puff of smoke, so we know he's dead. Tattoo guy sends wolves out, which is neat, except they literally do nothing. Abby, I think, swings a stick at one. I don't know where the second one went. And it grabs on the stick and it's like, arr, arr, arr. And then they're fighting with the big guy and the other guy who balances a coin but doesn't do anything. And I'm like, where's the wolf? Is it still playing with the stick? Okay. There's another, another positive here. There's another character who is the bad ninja who just kills things by touching them or breathing on them. Like wherever she walks, plants wither and die. She like blows a kiss at you, and you're like, right? So Elektra's doing Elektra foo, and she turns around, and the pestilence lady's there, and she goes, "Smooches!" And she does this thing where she's leaning into the smooch, but you've seen the Michael Jackson lean where they right, does the same thing, only she lays very slowly, and this is slow motion that I think works while she's smooching Elektra to poison her. She's slowly laying her down from a standing position onto the ground, which is starting to rot away. A little difficult to describe, but visually that worked for me. I thought that was a neat touch. So kudos there. Except apparently the poison that she does is not particularly potent, because Elektra, as far as I can tell, literally just sleeps it off and she's fine. Okay. Oh, in the middle of that fight scene, the good hand shows up and just saves all our characters. Elektra's actually not very good. They build her up at the beginning of the movie, but they're trying to do that John Wick thing. I think it's the first movie with Peter Stormare, where they're like, well, what? And Peter Stormare sitting there, he's like, what happened? It's like, oh, your son. It's just like, what did he do? He dented John Wick's car. And he's like, oh no. Fix the car. Something like that, right? And it shows you that, John Wick is, this is a guy who you don't cross this guy, he will end you and everyone who works for you. Just give him what he wants. There's no dealing with this guy. He is a force of nature that you can't fight. That's what they're going for at the beginning of this movie, where there's the bad guy sitting in the chair, and he's like, I don't know why I hired security. She's just going to kill you all, and you won't even see it coming. And they say that she whispers in your ear before she kills you. And, okay, cool, we're setting this up, but it goes on for like 8 minutes. Maybe it's not that long, but it feels like it. It just goes on and on and on and on. So she finally arrives after killing the entire security force, and she talks to him from across the room. And then she, teleports to where he is, and then whispers in his ear something fairly threatening. And then I guess she turned around and walked back across the room to throw a sigh at him. I don't know why she didn't just run him through while she was standing there. She snuck up on him to do the whisper in your ear and then end you thing, which, cool, creepy, I like. And then I guess she teleported away again to get some distance to throw a sigh. I mean, works either way, I guess, but... Here's another problem with the movie. Jennifer Garner does not have the presence to instill fear, right? There are some people that are just naturally intimidating. Let's see. Zoe Bell can do it very well. Lucy Lawless can do it. Cynthia Rothrock. Brigitte Nielsen. There are a lot of performers who have that aura of, you don't mess with them, they will tear you apart. Jennifer Garner, I'm not a fine performer in her own right. This is not the role for her if you're trying to make her the boogeyman. That's just not her strength as a performer. She delivered that, oh, sure, yeah, I really hate it. I hated the smooches. She delivered that with aplomb. I love that. She has her strengths. This particular presence is not one of them. I do not buy anyone being intimidated by her. But the movie starts out clearly emphasizing that this is a woman who will end you, and everyone pees their pants when they hear her name, right? And then the treasure girl breaks into her house, and Elektra throws an X-Acto knife at her, which pins her sleeve to the wall, and then teleports to the other side of her. And the treasure girl is not intimidated at all. And at this point, as a viewer, I'm confused. I'm like, well, wait a minute. Is she frightening or not? Because Abby, the little treasure girl, is not intimidated. Abby comes back the next day and invites her to Christmas dinner. She is seriously not intimidated by this woman, even though she threw an X-Acto knife at her from across the room, pinning her sleeve to the wall, and can clearly teleport. Now, if that was a character thing for Abby, like she just has no... She's like the girl without fear. She's just like, nothing phases her. That could be a fun character thing. But no, no one... They set up how, oh man, she's so intimidating, but her handler or manager, the guy who gets her work as an assassin, he's not intimidated by her. The 13-year-old girl is not intimidated by her. The widower dad is not intimidated by her. And I guess it's not terribly surprising because, I mean, she doesn't beat the big dude. He beats himself with a tree. I guess she does throw a knife at the guy who balances a coin, but he wasn't doing anything anyway. Smooch's girl smooched her to sickness. I mean, she got better, but... And then in the fight at the end of the movie with Swords Guy, Kari Hiroyuki Tagawa's kid, I mean, she immediately gets pwned. I mean, she, like, does one block, and then he smacks her in the noggin, or, like, round kicks her, and then she goes flying, and then she gets covered by a sheet, which she seems stuck under, or maybe she was just knocked for a loop. But she does this weird thing where she stands up from under the sheet and flips her sides around and starts to... I'm like she's Spider-Man willing the strength to push the rubble off of his head. You were covered by a sheet, Elektra. And not even one with a very high thread count. It couldn't have been that heavy. So she gets the rematch against the bad guy, and there's this weird thing where she, like, just... Size against sword is a great matchup. She, like, blocks, and then she stands there, like... And I'm like, what? And then she gets kicked, and then the bad guy just mocks her for a bit, and then I guess she gets irritated and stabs him to death. And then she's like, oh, hey, the pestilence lady smooched little treasure girl. There she is. And just throws a sigh, and it goes through the hedge maze that they're all running around in, and just catches her straight in the face, and they managed to do it a PG-13 way, but she catches a sigh straight in the middle of the face. That was pretty good. Well, that's a plus too. I like that. So, the tattoo guy, she apparently has some clairvoyant powers where she can just see where everyone is in an environment. So she's like, oh, tattoo guy's sitting over there. So she walks over and just walks up to him and snaps his neck, and that's it. Okay. It's a cool idea for a character. It's a shame they don't, like, do much with it. I mean, the bird scouts, but it doesn't, like, attack anybody. I mean, that's maybe not its role, so I'd be okay with that. But the wolves just... You'd think they're used for tracking, but it's not really presented like that. And one of the wolves disappears, or I forgot what happened to it. And another one seems to be distracted by a stick. Okay. And then the snakes just... They pin the little girl to the ground, and I guess he's just focusing on pinning... I don't know. I think you could have done more with that. But they didn't. Little girl's fine, because the pestilence smooches, as we've already established, are not that deadly. You just kind of sleep them off. I mean, Elektra does do the Miyagi ha ha kind of thing, and she's fine, which I guess someone did to her. I guess I don't know. It just doesn't communicate as a particularly potent threat. There's one sequence in the movie where Elektra like has foresight. So there's a scene where she's like, okay, family's over here, I'm going to go out into the living room, and oh no, I got hit with flying darts, and now I'm dead, and now the family's dead, oh, that's terrible. And then it rewinds, and she's like, oh, I guess I shouldn't do it that way. Oh, well, that was weird, and they only do it that one time in the movie, so... I know there's a movie out there somewhere that the whole idea is this person can see every possible path. So the reason they're so lucky and they know exactly where to go is because they've gone through every path. I forget what movie that is, but you know, the idea of an assassin waiting for their next assignment, and while they're waiting, they, go to Christmas dinner with the neighbors, and then they find out that, oh shoot, the guy I like and his adorable kid are my next targets. Oh, awkward. That's a fine setup for these kind of movies, right? It's like, now I'm going to have to turn to the light side and protect them while all the other assassins come after them. Okay. Which is funny because they hired Elektra to kill her because she was the little prodigy that if they can't have her, then no one can, right? So they sent Elektra and she said no. And like that evening, they had 2 ninjas out there ready to kill the family. That was quick. I get... This movie's bad. Just nothing works. None of the characters are interesting. The action isn't exciting. There's not much humor. There's a couple jokes. Some of them land. The kissing, yeah, that was a terrible thing. That was funny. I like that. And it is a short movie. Shorter. But again, it took me 2.5 hours to get through it. It's just really, really boring. Unfortunately, Elektra did not break the streak of bad superhero films. Honestly, I wasn't expecting it to. I'd never heard anyone say anything good about this movie. In fact, I don't think I know anyone who's ever seen it. Yeah, it's not a good movie. It's bad. Oh well. What's next? Ghost Rider's next. So here's the thing though. What I've heard about Ghost Rider is it's not a good movie, but Nicolas Cage is in it doing his Nicolas Cage thing, and that's entertaining. Cool. But the thing is, I like Nicolas Cage. I like him as a performer, but the Nicolas Cage thing doesn't do it for me. Like the remake of not the Hollow Man, Wicker Man, so many mans, with Nick Cage. I know a lot of people love that movie because it's just so bonkers and the Nick Caginess of it, punching a bear and not the bees and all that stuff. I don't like the movie. The Nick Cagey shtick thing doesn't save a bad movie for me, so I'm a little worried going into Ghost Rider. And there's 2 of them. So, we'll see.